Okay.
Hi, I'm Steve Parker. It's another video in our Series 3 project vehicle. This vehicle is a Series 3 long wheelbase, right-hand drive, was originally 2.25 diesel, now it's got a 300 TDI in it. Today's video is about power steering. Something we've worked on for quite a number of years really is this. We decided to go the P38 steering box route as against what other people do using the AdRest style boxes. We found that the AdRest style boxes are not a very good box, they tend to leak a lot. But to install them, they fit on the inside of the chassis, so the cross members and stuff need moving. So a hell of a job. The front panel then has got to be suspended out, and then makes mounting the radiators etc. more complicated. We've used a power steering system here. It is not a complete system, it's not designed to fit a standard 2.25 petrol or diesel. The power steering is designed to fit Series 2A and Series 3 models. Usually when you're doing an engine conversion, if you're fitting a more modern engine, they've got the power steering pumps fitted as standard, and you go into trouble to take them off for the installation. So we're trying to utilise the power source that we've already got. Now, one of the big problems with power steering is once you get it on, it is too light and it's too slow. The manual steering has got foil turns from lock to lock, where the Defenders and Discovery etc. have only got 3 turns from lock to lock. And it makes a big difference when you actually put power onto it, because you feel like you turn the wheel forever and then nothing's happening. But the steering was just too light and too comfortable, you just didn't feel as though you got the whole of the vehicle at speed. So we looked at various ways of trying to calm the steering down. We looked at it hydraulically, but mechanically was the answer. And we looked at this for quite a while. So this is the linkage setup that we've come up with. Now we've tried to keep all the tracked ends on the ball joints to fit the components that are designed to go into. So from the steering box end, we use the power steering box off the P38. So we use the P38 ball joint at this end. One of the problems that we have here is all the rods are imperial and the ball joint is metric. So we have this adapter which takes us down from metric at this end to imperial at that end. Because all the rods on the classic Range Rovers, the Discoveries ones, series motors and Defenders are all imperial threads and all the same size. So this end, on our special adapter, it is quite a thick item. We've made it that way so it's for strength, and of course the ball joint at this end now is off a Defender because the tape is designed to fit properly, but because we need the extra length of the thread for the Defender. Of course these are standard on the outer of the standard Series 3 ones. Now when you come to mount this steering system, to try and keep the cost down, what we've tried to do is to utilise the power steering box off the P38 and the universal steering shaft off the P38. We use the Defender, steering column and steering wheel. Now you have to be careful with this because there's 2 different splines on the steering columns. So if you get the wheel to match the column, you have no problem. When it comes to mounting, sorry, there's one other thing that I need to do. So when you're getting your parts together, you need the box of the P38, the pipework, the power steering reservoir and bracket. Now one of the things, it isn't shown here actually, but we have an hydraulic adapter, because one of the reasons we have a bigger problem is all the pipework from the pumps is 8mm and the P38 one is 10mm. So we have this compression fitting adapter which reduces it from 10 down to 8mm, and that makes it all nice and neat and simple. In case they cut the pipes in a convenient location, then you literally just screw them all together. So when it comes to mounting the steering box, this is our adapter. It fits on the outside of the chassis. It's a simple plate. Now the 4 holes here are obviously set by the mounting holes on the steering box itself. When we come to mounting on the chassis, the profile of the chassis is different between long wheelbase and short wheelbase. And when we come to mount this on long wheelbase, we have to put the bolts through from the chassis side and make sure the flats on the bolts are level across, because the profile of the chassis literally just sits inside the bolt heads. Now short wheelbases, you've got a bit more room because the chassis is a different profile. Now when it comes to mount this onto the chassis, what we don't want to do is put all the weight of the steering box just on one plate of the chassis. So we put gussets on the top of the chassis and the bottom of the chassis, and we mount them something like that, with a nice corner weld on the outside there, and then that would then go weld to the top of the chassis rail. We'll have a look underneath the wheel arch now, and we'll show you how it's all installed. We've got the plate here. You can see the bolts now on the steering box, fitted to the outside of the chassis. We've got the gussets down here, here, and same on the front as well. Now that sets the height of the steering box. What we now need to do now is to set the position of the steering box forward and backwards. Now on the original gearbox support plate, you're probably better off removing that at this stage. We have 3 bolts which go through, 3 5/16 bolts which go through there. These are datum point. So these holes are always in the same place. This one, which we've marked, we measure from there to the centre of the hole, not the edge of the plate, the centre of the hole, 19 inches. Now remove the shock absorber to make sure you get a straight line. You'll also need to remove the bump stop rubber so you can get your torch in there to weld it. Now, when you come to set it all up, tack it all in place, make sure it's all fits as it should do. So measure everything, make sure it's all it should be, then you weld it up. Now one of the things you've got to be careful with, it wants to be done with MIG welding, with a competent welder that knows what he's doing. Because obviously there's a lot of weight on this steer and it's absolutely critical welding. Now, when you come to weld the back side of the plate to the chassis, you've got to leave an area clear for the bolt heads, otherwise you can't get your bolts in. Now the top part of the steering box plate will need modifying to clear the steering column, but we'll show you that more in detail when we go inside the bonnet area. Now while we're underneath the wheel arch, I'll just show you the modifications. That's the original steering box cover, which has now been altered to take the steering column because it runs on an angle. All that is just some aluminium just folded up in the vise with 2 pieces of steel angle just tapering out, then riveted together. You can see quite a simple construction. And this is like a box which we put round here. Now we've made our box out of aluminium, which is a bit cumbersome really. It's a bit too big, because what we have found is on full lock, on actual deflection, it was just starting to touch the corner of the box. Now later ones we've done, we say make a little sort of bracket up top of there, and then come round here with a piece of rubber, a normal flap or something like that, or if you haven't got anything, we may have something in stock which will do the job for you. Then bolt it through there, and those are the original front panel fixings, so pick up on them. You'll see that when the box is installed, you'll be amazed at how well it fits, because the front panel is literally just on the edge of there, and it just clears just by a whisker. So, while the vehicle's up on the lift, we'll look at the steering linkages, and then we can take it from there. We've got Series 3 track end in here, standard. And then the P38 ball joint in there, and you can just see that's where our adapter fits. Now one of the things which is quite important to do, before you actually take the vehicle off the road ideally, get the tracking set to make sure it's right. Because that then, when you take the track rod off, don't disturb it, the original one, because obviously your kit comes with all new track rods, and that will give you dimension for your tracking. So if you measure from this thread to the thread on the other side, that's your dimension when you come to set your tracking up. Now we'll move on to onto this side and we'll show you our adapter. The drag link now sits here instead of being in there like it was originally. And that's, so you can adjust it for length there and everywhere. So that's a standard Series 3 track rod end joint at this end. That's the Defender ball joint there, because of the extra length of the thread that we require for that. So while we're here, we'll go underneath the vehicle now and show you the hydraulic pipes. Now you'll see up here, we have the, in this case, the 300 TDI power steering pump. That's the main pipe from the pump to the box, a high pressure one. Now on here you'll see this valve. We don't use this valve anymore, it was just something we're experimenting with, so ignore that. Really, we should have took it out, but we haven't done. Now one thing we have to do is to alter the pipes from 8mm to 10mm. On here we've done it on the valve, but we would supply you with a kit which has got that adapter in, which is just one of these really, with the right size nut on the other end. The pipe then goes up to the steering box and that completes that one. Your return pipe now from the reservoir back to the pump is this one here, which is just standard oil tolerant 5/8 16mm hydraulic hose, which comes back then goes to the pump. Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll come out, drop the vehicle down and have a look underneath the bonnet. This is the Defender steering column installed. Now you'll see on the Series 3, those two bolts there, I've got the nut sets already in the bulkhead. Bear in mind that a Series 3 bulkhead is an adaptation of a Series 2A bulkhead. A Defender is an adaptation of a Series 3 bulkhead. So on a Series 3, we would use that bracket which comes with the steering column, or try and get it with the steering column. On a Series 2A, those nut sets will not be there, but you won't need them because you've got your upper support bracket inside the vehicle on the parcel shelf. There's two types, doesn't matter which type it is, both of them will do the job. Now if you look here at the bottom of the steering column, this is the bearing housing here. You'll see a bracket underneath it. Try and get that bracket with the steering column if at all possible. If not, they're available separately and they're not very expensive. We can supply them for you. Now while we're down here, you can just see we've had to cut away part of the plate down there on the original steering box plate, which is only holding the bulkhead in place now. It's not taking with load of the steering like it was before, because obviously the load of the steering has now been transferred to the chassis because we put the power steering box on. Now we'll run to the bonnet. We get the P38 power steering reservoir and the bracket to go with it. We just made up a simple L-shaped bracket just to mount it, which is convenient for the box and a nice convenient location for servicing. Left-hand drive models, you might have to do something different over there because it's pretty confined on a 300, but it depends on what engine you're going to install anyway, because again that's down to what engine you're going to put in. If we can't get new ones of these now are obsolete, but they're the same as what's used on Defenders and on all the other models, so it's no big deal, isn't that? It's just a simple reservoir. But the brackets are obsolete as well, so we can use the Defender bracket, which will just go in place, because again, you're making this to suit whatever you've got. Get your pipework sorted out, then mount the reservoir in a convenient location, clear the bonnet prop on these motors, etc. So that basically covers that. You can't really see much more on the top side, so what we'll do now, we'll go around and have a look inside the vehicle. You'll see that the rim of the steering wheel is in the same place as it is on the Series 3. The Series 3 wheels are dished, and the Defender wheels, as you can see, are flat. And the difference is taken up on the length of the inner steering column. Now that just causes a problem with the self-cancelling mechanism, because what we tried to do on the Series 3 was utilise the original Series 3 cowls, ignition switch and the indicator start. we looked at extending a tube down over the column to trigger the indicator stalk, but that didn't work out very well. You'd end up cutting big pieces of it away and it'd look a right mess. So we decided to, for what it is, just switch it on and off manual as you go around the corner. It's something you soon get used to. Series 2A models, obviously you've got the aluminium box one there on the side. You can extend the tube down to get self-counting on that should you so wish. Now another way that people have done or suggested, we've never done it here so we don't know how practical it is to use the Defender cowls and switches, etc. But then you're into wiring and more messing around and more work and more expense, and it just seemed like an awful lot of work just to go like that. Now when you're doing the installation, you will need to take the clocks out of the way because there's only 2 screws, but you've got your wiring behind. So when you're going to disconnect it all, label everything up so you know where it goes back together. It's quite simple really, but obviously you've got your column coming through there, so it's a bit messy. Now when you come to set the steering up, you set your tracking, so you set your wheel straight ahead. Now you set your steering wheel up and you set your drag link up. Now it might be a case of you set your drag link up where it wants to be, and then put your steering wheel on then to suit where it all is. Now we've got a bit of tape on here now which will show us where centre is. Obviously you don't want to be setting it up either way, you need to be in the middle. So you've got your tracking set, your drag link set, then you put the wheel on to find where centre is, so you know everything's in line now. Now one of the things which we need to mention is when the track rod is set up underneath the springs, you've got to be careful of the clearance onto the road spring. I should have mentioned that before actually, but I've missed it. But when you turn from lock to lock, you've got to make sure the clamps and everything's out of the way of the spring. Now when the vehicle's on a ramp like this, the springs drop down, and that's where the tolerance and the clearance is at its tightest. Now when the vehicle's normal on the floor with the wheels on, you'll have more clearance there. Now one thing you may find, if you set the steering up on a ramp like this, your steering might be a little bit off centre when you come to put it back together again, so you might just have to do a slight tweak on the drag link just to get it dead straight when the vehicle's loaded down. Well, that basically covers the power steering conversion. Hope you found it of interest. It works out really well. We've got away from the problem of having 4 turns from lock to lock and increased the rate of the steering, and it makes it more like a Defender to drive from a steering point of view. So we hope you found this of help. So thanks very much for watching. All the parts that we've talked about are available at Steve Parker's. Look on the website for all the details. Thanks very much. Bye now.